And I've got a really sort of cringy story that I'm going to have to share. I was at a wedding performing, and it was pre-dinner drinks. I walked up to a couple, and I did a card trick, and they went, "Oh, that's really good." But we saw this magician recently, and he did this most amazing trick where he had a photograph of his daughter, and he got the card inside that his daughter had drawn before he even, and explained my own trick to me. And I was like, "Oh, really?" And I was like, I didn't know how to feel about this. So I got the trailer of Child's Play and showed him that it was my trick. I'm not proud. I'm not proud at all. It's not my proudest moment.
Welcome to another episode of Desert Island Tricks. We've got another great guest today, another name that you're going to hear. But before we get into that, let's let you know the concepts of the podcast. So the idea is that our guests are marooned on a desert island. Of course, we're not going to chuck them on a real desert island. It's only make-believe. And when they're there, they're allowed to take with them 8 tricks, 1 book, and 1 non-magic item that they use for magic. Particulars like audience and all that sort of stuff, it really doesn't matter. The idea really is these are the things that they just couldn't live without. They're best of the best. So today's guest is a creator and a performer. He's very, very well versed in the world of magic. He's a big friend of Alakazam, I should say, and we're big fans of him here. He's had multiple academies here. His books are incredible. I bought one of his most recent tricks called Cloak, and if you haven't seen it, you have to grab it because it's excellent. He is just a wonderfully commercial magician and performer, and I cannot wait to hear what his list is. So today's guest, of course, is Mr. Chris Congreave. How are you, Chris?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you. I'm going to get you to talk into the mic a bit more.
Sorry.
There you go. So,
a good start there.
Yep, I'm really looking forward to your list.
Oh, it's an interesting concept, isn't it? Desert island tricks, and it's going to be a little bit weird for me because I don't perform other people's tricks very often. So there's going to be a couple of my own that sneak in there, unfortunately. But we'll see how we go. Yeah.
That's okay. If that's your list, that's your list. It'll be interesting to find out why you've picked those particular ones, though. Yeah. Because you've got a big old back catalogue of
it's getting bigger, stuff. Isn't it? It's like my belly. It just seems to get bigger all the time. And yeah, to be honest, yeah, and I'm working on new stuff, and yeah, I don't know. It's I think I enjoy the creative process, and I really enjoy sort of thinking about problems, and Cloak that you just mentioned there, that was just something that just, it's weird because sometimes you can be thinking about a problem for months before you come up with a solution, and Cloak sort of hit me between the eyes, in a flash of inspiration while I was sat in the living room on my own. It was a really weird thing. So yeah. What was the question again?
I can see how this one's going to start going. Good. So let's get to your desert island and let's find out the first trick that you chose and why.
So is it a desert island in the canal like in the West Midlands?
That is our budget. That's it.
So there's a shop. I can see the shopping trolleys and McDonald's wrappers. Okay, so my first trick would be one by Mr. Steve Cook, and it's Diabolical. And the reason I chose Diabolical is I absolutely love the method more than anything. I think it's one of those routines where you have to be thinking on your toes to make it appear fair, and for it to, it's not the same outcome every time. So it's not multiple outs as such, and I'm dancing around the method a little bit here because I don't want to give it away for people who haven't got it. But you do have to think on your feet, which I love as a performer, because it makes things feel a little bit fresh as you're performing it. And I bought this from you guys at Alakazam, when it came out, and I think I'd already seen it in Steve's book. I can't remember which way around it goes now. Actually, I may have got the book after I got the trick. I can't quite remember. But you guys did a really great job of putting the props together. So the dice are really nice, the bag's really nice, and I just think it's a really nice thing. But the main reason that I chose this is it's the perfect lead-in to my next trick. Which will make sense in a few moments when I tell you what my next trick is, and I'm sure you've probably guessed by now anyway. But yeah, I think it's a real. And Steve Cook is not only one of my favourite creators, he's also one of my favourite people. You know, he's a really, really lovely guy. I love spending time with him and chatting with him and stuff. And two of my favourite effects by him are Diabolical and Swindle, which are both Alakazam releases. And I just love Steve's thinking, really. And my first choice is Diabolical by Steve Cook.
Yeah, great choice. Obviously, because it's a public podcast, we can't talk method. But when you reference the method, it is just really clever. It's almost like a linguistic technique, I would say. It's almost like how you're framing it or what you're saying, which makes it work.
And the challenging thing about it. It's a self-working trick, but it would be so easy to for this not to appear convincing. If you know what I mean, you have to, as you're performing this trick, you have to be one step ahead of your audience almost. As soon as they do something, you've got to act really quick and naturally, as if that's what you're meant to do all along. And like I said, it just makes it performing it that much more interesting for me as a performer, because the outcome's not always the same and you have to think on your feet. And there is a danger when you're performing a lot of slipping into autopilot mode. Do you know what I mean? You sort of find yourself saying the same things and doing the same routines and doing the same tricks. And you have to try and keep it fresh and original, otherwise you can just stand there. And if you don't look like you're enjoying yourself as a performer, I think your audience can tell, you know. And for me, I have a lot of fun and I tell a lot of jokes, and I get a lot of feedback from my audience where they tell a lot of some of the best lines that I use in performance have come from spectators, you know, where they've said something funny, and now I'll either use it myself or I'll sort of try and steer the spectator to say a certain thing, or I might have ad-libbed something at a gig when somebody said something to me and I think, oh, that's funny, that works, and I'll use it again. And that's all about keeping your magic fresh, and this is one of those perfect routines for that.
Yep, I agree. It's a really, really strong first choice, I would say. I think it's a really, really good one. And
it's visually interesting, and it's, you know, I know people say it all the time, it's not cards. I do... I'm known for doing a lot of card tricks, okay? A lot of the things that I've released over the years have been card things, but when I perform at a table, you're only there for, 5 or 6 minutes, and I will do one card trick. The rest of the stuff I do is non-cards. So it might be a rope routine, which I'm going to talk about later. It might be a coin routine, which I'm going to talk about later, or a chop cup, which I'm not going to talk about later, but I'm sure Mark James talked about it. Because,
yep.
Because Mark's chop cup routine is just fabulous, you know. So I don't do a lot of card tricks when I'm performing. I do one at a table, and Diabolical fits that bill. It's not a card trick. It's visually interesting, and it's interesting to perform.
Yep, very, very, very good choice. Actually, at the point of recording, someone else has already said that trick.
Oh, cool. Can you remember who?
I can remember who. I'm not going to tell you, though. You have to listen to find out.
You're a trick teaser, you are.
I've been called worse. Good. So that brings us on to number 2. What did you go for your number 2 trick?
So I've already alluded to it. So my number 2 trick would be Roll, which is something that I, again, released through Alakazam. It's also written up in one of my books. And the one leads very well into the other. So you bring the dice out to do Diabolical, which, if you haven't seen it, there's 6 dice involved, but the spectators involved with 3 of those dice for the effect. So I've now got 3 dice in play. So now I've got 3 dice in play, I'm going to bring the cards in, and I'm going to perform Roll. Now, Roll, if you haven't seen it, it's one of my tricks. It's something that I came up with, I think, about 10 years ago or something like that. It's something that is quite well known. It's done quite well for me. And it's something that's visually interesting, because it's a card trick, but it's got a visually interesting moment in the trick where you're showing a stranger card. Okay, so you've got a blue pack of cards, and you've got a red back with a prediction on. Now I'm known, and a lot of my friends poke fun at me, as being the person who has invented more tricks with writing on the back than anybody else. In fact, Mark Shandow, he wrote the foreword to my latest book, and he actually comments on that and said that I've probably created jobs at Sharpie, and it's a bit of real estate. It's free real estate, isn't it? There's two sides to a pack of cards, so why not use both? And Roll does that beautifully. It's a self-working card trick. Now I can, I've spent a lot of time learning sleight of hand, and I can do sleight of hand. And Roll's a self-working card trick, and this, do you know what? I love it. It's great, but always plays well. As I said, it's visually interesting, and the one trick sort of blends beautifully into the next trick, so it feels like one routine, rather than two tricks. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Mm-hmm. So I, not just because you're here, but I'm a big fan of a few of your tricks, and this was one of the first marketed sort of ones of yours that I'd seen.
Okay.
And I loved it straight away. I think the method's really clever, firstly.
I can't even remember how I came up with that method now.
It's just so clever.
I was playing around with a Cameron Francis effect called the Annihilation deck, and I can't remember exactly how that went now, the Annihilation deck, but I was playing around with Cameron's effect, and I really liked it, and I tweaked it slightly, and I came up with the predecessor to Roll, and I was thinking to myself, how can I think with Cameron's thing, if I remember rightly, it was 26 cards, I think, and I'm thinking to myself, well, if I limit the numbers, it's going to be a lot cleaner, and I can do something else with it. So I thought, well, I can use dice. Okay, so if I use 3 dice, the maximum number is going to be 18. So the first edition of Roll, or Diabolical as it was then known, was I'd roll the dice, and then you deal down and you predicted the playing card, so it would be the 7 of hearts. And then after a couple of days of me feeling all clever and smug with myself, I had one of those moments where I slapped myself in there. I was like, "Do I know what the card is? I can predict the number of the dice and the number that you've rolled as well." And all of a sudden now you've got this double prediction, and it feels more impressive, even though it's exactly the same trick. But like as I just mentioned, those two things, when you put them together, it does feel like a short routine. So for that reason, I chose Roll.
Yeah, really, really good choice. Really strong choice as well. So that brings us to number 3. What's in your third position?
Number 3 is 3 Ropes and a Baby, or Fibre Optics, the Richard Sanders routine. And I've been performing this routine for, I'm going to say 20 years or something. It certainly feels like 20 years. When I first started performing Restaurant Magic in the early 2000s, I think Richard had just done a tour in the UK, and his DVD set, what was it called now? This Richard Sanders show had come out. I'm thinking this was around 2004, something like that. So yeah, 20 years. I can't believe that's 20 years, mate. You're going to tell me you were at school now, aren't you?
Yeah, I would have been at school. Yeah.
Way to make me feel old. So basically, Fibre Optics, what can I say about this routine? I've performed it on stage. I've performed it in children's shows when I used to do them. I still do it at every close-up show that I do. It takes up no space in your pocket. You can put the ropes away at any point in the routine and you can move on. It's visually fantastic. I've got loads of jokes around the trick. I mean, if you can't make some jokes out of having a load of rope in your pocket and one of them's short and phallic, you might as well give up. But it's just got so many positive things about it. It's just such a great routine, and I've come up with my own sort of handling and my own finish to it, which works for me, works really well for me. All the gags, but yeah, it's just one of those I know it's a cliche, but play small, packs big. And the other thing about it as well is anybody who's performed at tables in close-up. Now, I don't do stage stuff anymore. I used to do it, but I don't do it anymore. I just stick to close-up, which is what I love doing. But if you're performing at a table, okay, you're standing there and you've got those ropes up at shoulder height and they're looking at your face. How many times I've seen magicians doing a card trick and the cards are down by their balls. Let's be honest about it. You know what I mean? They've got the cards at groin height, and I want them to remember me, not my package, because it's not that impressive, quite honestly. So for all those reasons, it's visual. It's you know what I mean. It's commercial. The whole room can see that you're standing there performing, and so on and so forth. So for me, Fibre Optics by Richard Sanders is probably, I would say, my favourite routine to perform of somebody else's.
Yeah, I think that's a really good choice. I always think about people who are like close-up performers who want to get into stage or parlour. Mm-hmm. Those are the perfect tricks because they
do both. Yeah,
they do everything. And I always think about upselling at gigs and having to perform for a larger group.
Yep.
Really, there's not much more work for you because you already do the routine. It's just opening it up to the audience.
And that's a great point. You know, there's a few routines that I would put in that category. And interestingly, the two that I'm going to mention now are both Alakazam releases. And believe it or not, I'm not being sponsored and paid to say this, but it's genuinely true. And these are both things that I either do or have carried with me, and they're perfect for stand-up. So the one is Big Reaction by Andy Nyman. And these aren't on my list, by the way, and the other is ID by, again, Steve Cook. And both of those routines, they take up, especially ID. I mean, I've always got ID with me, you know. It takes up no space. And you can do it in a stand-up routine, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I've done that myself in the past. You know, you're doing a wedding or like a small, it's like golf dinners and things like this, you know, where there's sort of 10 tables or 8 tables or something. You know, you do the pre-dinner and you do the tables, and you say to them, well, do you know what, I could do like a 15-minute cabaret for you at the end, and then you can charge them a little bit more, and they feel like they've got a bit of a show. So the other thing that I would do in that situation would be something with a destination box maybe, or, you know, or a ring flight routine or something like that. But yeah, Fibre Optics, definitely. That's the one time I don't perform it at tables, is when I'm doing, as you say, a little bit of a show at the end, and then I'll put it in there.
Yeah, it's a really, really good choice. And it's one that I think most people have probably at least tried to learn.
Well, the Professor's Nightmare side of it, the first part of Fibre Optics, I think most magicians will have at some point either performed it or learnt it or tried it or something. And to be honest with you, when I do the Professor's Nightmare part of the routine, you do get spectators who'll sort of nudge their mates and stuff like this because they've seen it before, or I think it's been exposed in some beginners magic sets and things like that, you know. So they kind of, they may not remember how it's done, but they know that they've seen a method for it. So you know what it's like, even when once the spectator's got a method in their mind, they're going to whisper to their mate, oh, I've seen this before. But once that's out the way, and then you move on to the stage where you turn it into a long rope and then you pull the ends off and all the rest of it, becomes really sort of super visual, and you just see people just like their eyes pop out, you know. It's like really visual stuff.
Yep, really good choice. And that brings us up to a halfway point already.
That's only 3 tricks.
Yeah, so 4 would be halfway to your 8.
Oh, no way.
So, yeah, what have you got in your 4th position?
So 4th position, and I'm going to name another one of my tricks here. I'm sorry. As I said, I don't perform a lot of other people's material, unfortunately. And it's child's play. So child's play, I still perform to this day. It's something that has got... the thing with child's play is it's not the trick, especially, that people will remember. It's the story and it's the hook and it's the presentation. And as soon as you start talking about your kids or your grandkids or whatever, people can relate to it straight away. And I'll say to them, you know, oh, have you got children and this type of thing. And people start, oh, yeah, I've got a little granddaughter, she's 3 and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, oh, that's a funny name. And, you know, but you can engage with people. And And also, child's play, harking back to what we just mentioned, is one of those routines where you can perform it in a little stand-up set at the end as well. It's not necessarily something I would do around the tables these days, but I might do it at the end of a short sort of 15-minute set. But it's the hook, the photograph of the kid, and I've got a really sort of cringy story about child's play that I'm going to have to share. I was at a wedding performing, and it was pre-dinner drinks. I walked up to a couple and I did a card trick, and they went, "Oh, that's really good, but we saw this magician recently and he did this most amazing trick where he had a photograph of his daughter, and he got the card inside that his daughter had drawn before he even, and explained my own trick to me." And I was like, "Oh, really?" And I was like, I didn't know how to feel about this. So I got the trailer of Child's Play and showed him that it was my trick. I'm not proud. I'm not proud at all. It's not my proudest moment. But yeah, it's just moving swiftly on. It's one of those routines where you make people feel good thinking about their own kids and grandkids and stuff like that. And I think that probably is stronger than the trick itself. Well, it's a good, it's a strong trick. It's a good trick, but I think it's the feeling behind the trick that makes it what it is.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a really interesting premise. Do you know what it is? It's a card trick, but like a few of your things, actually, it doesn't feel like a card trick because of the way it's put, like the premise of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, people forget about the card. They just remember the prediction of it.
Good choice. So that brings us past the halfway point on to number 5.
So this isn't really a trick as such, and I've got a couple of things here where I'm going to do this. I'm just going to say coins and a shell. So a shell set. And one of the routines that I perform all the time in walk around at tables, etc., is a three coin production and vanish. Okay, but as well as that, you can do coins through table, you can do coins across. There's so much, and if I'm going to be stuck on a desert island, I want to be coming up with new routines and new material and playing around with stuff as much as anything else. And I think with coins and a shell, there's loads that you can do, And I think of again, one of my early releases was ice coins. That was using coins and a shell. That was with Alakazam back in 2007, I think, something like that. When you were still in nappies, never mind at school. And so yeah, coins in a shell. I mean, just 3 fly. There's so many routines that you can do just using those things. Even just 4 coins, just 4 regular coins, or 5 regular coins. But then add a shell as well, and you can do real miracles, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a really good choice. Quite a few people have chosen something along that line. So something where it's almost like a conduit to other things and other routines and other ideas.
Coin shells have been around for a long, long time, and I still think that there's so much more that you can do with it. And I mean, I haven't even started scratching the surface with it. But if you think of some of the most magical things that I've ever seen with a coin, in Magic with coins, like a matrix, a bare-handed matrix using a shell, it just looks and like a reverse matrix and things like that. They just look like pure magic, What was the routine by what's his name now? What's it called? With the shell, where it's in the
might need to narrow that down
a
little bit.
I know. I'm just trying to think now. He came in a little rubber purse, and it was coins across it in a spectator's hands. It'll come back to me in a minute.
Imagination coins?
Yes.
Garrett Thomas?
Yes. Garrett Thomas, yeah, good shout. What a fantastic routine. And
amazing.
I did it for a while, and I don't know why it slipped from my repertoire, quite honestly. I might explore it again. And that's just using a shell and a couple of regular coins. And, it's quite brave and ballsy and stuff, but, you're getting a spectator to lift the shell off and put it in your hand. And I know we're not meant to be talking methods here, but, and there's so much more that can be done with a shell and coins. And, like I say, 3 fly... some amazing stuff. So I think, yeah, for me, that's my next pick.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to let you know about all the exciting things happening here at Alakazam Magic. We have brand new releases every single month and live streams every Tuesday, so there's so much content to dive into. We ship every single day. If you're in the UK and your order goes to over £40, we ship it to you for free. If you're international and your order amounts to over £70, we ship it for free, fully tracked. And if you live in the United States, we get it sent from our California branch, which means you have cheaper shipping, faster shipping, and no import duties. Can't get any better than that. Honestly, there's so much to discover here at Alakazam, including the monthly newsletter with all orders. We have our own live academy where the world's biggest names in Magic teach the best tricks in the world. And it's live, so you can interact and ask any questions you like. We have so many exciting things happening here at Alakazam, so make sure you follow us on all social media, Facebook and Instagram, to find out the latest news. Cheers guys, and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Yeah, really, really good choice.
Did Harry just blow a kiss at us then at the end?
He did. He did. He does that all the time.
Well, he didn't blow a kiss at me when I walked in earlier. He full on gave me one on the lips.
No, that was his dog Buddy.
Oh yeah, that's true. Can't tell them, but they've got the same breath. That's what it is.
So that takes us way past halfway point. Sorry, we're on number 6 now. Go for it.
Number 6, Invisible Deck. And I know for a fact that somebody else has mentioned this. And Invisible Deck is one of those things. It's a bit of a boring answer, I'm afraid, but it's something that, if it's used well, and it's a brilliant effect. So you're turning a card trick now into something theatrically really good, really impressive. You can have a lot of fun, you can have a lot of jokes, you can have a lot of rude jokes if you want to, when you get them to shuffle an invisible pack of cards. And there's so many things you can do there. That moment when they turn that card over, for me the Invisible Deck is much, much stronger than a Brainwave deck for a start off, because you've got that, you're spreading a face up pack and then there's one card face down. And they're ahead of you now. They're like, no way. There's just no way that's my card. And when they turn it over, it's a real killer moment. But the other thing about the Invisible Deck as well is, when I was first starting out performing, you're a bit nervous, a bit worried about what happens if this happens, what happens if something goes wrong, what happens if somebody names the wrong card, and blah, 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 blah. You can use it as an out as well. It's not something that I do now, because I've been performing for a long time and I don't necessarily worry about those things. And if somebody does name the wrong card, then I've got ways of dealing with it that don't involve an invisible deck or a fist. But do you know what I mean? It can be used as an out, especially if you're a little bit nervous and you're just starting out performing. It's great to have that safety blanket there. Okay. But also there's other things that can be done with an invisible deck as well. That, again, talking back to what we were on about with the coins in a shell, I don't think the Invisible Deck has been fully explored to its fullest potential yet. One of the best uses that I've seen of an Invisible Deck, other than the standard sort of Don Allen presentation, is Mark Shortland's take on it. Have you seen that?
No.
So what Mark does is he brings out the pack and he shows them all the one way, and he puts them in he puts them in a pot noodle pot, right? And then he basically shakes the pots up, and then when he brings them out again, he shows them that some cards are face up and some are face down and all this type of thing. It's been a long time since I've seen this, so I may not get it exactly right. And then I think he gets somebody in the audience to name a card, and then he shakes it all again, and then when he brings them out, he runs through and he shows that they're all facing the one way except for one card, and it's the card that's been named. So obviously with the pot noodle thing, right, you're shaking them, but all they're doing is bouncing up and down, and they're not actually changing at all. But the illusion is fantastic. And I think I've seen Jay Sankey do stuff where he's put big crosses on and things like this. So again, the Invisible Deck, I think, has got something that's got more potential if you want to take the time to sit there and work on it and come up with stuff, really.
So I think someone's already mentioned that exact routine as well.
The Mark Shortland one, yeah?
Yeah.
I saw him do it in Cabaret quite a few years ago at one of the local magic clubs that I'm a member of, and it stuck with me as it's a really. I mean, I don't really do any stand up stuff very much, but it's just a great use of the invisible. It just, I don't know, it just added a fun presentation to it, really. And when I watched him do it, it was funny, and and it just made sense, and it turned something from a mind reading effect into apparently a skill. Something he was doing a skill, and he was basically trying to make out that he was doing exactly, he was shaking all the cards. So one a bit, you know what I mean? It was just great. It's just really fun and interesting way of using the invisible deck. But like I say, for all those reasons, and I would always say to any sort of anybody who's just starting to perform, an invisible deck is a perfect thing to have in your pocket there, just in case something goes wrong when you're performing a card trick. It's a great out.
And again, it's the same as ropes. It can play really, really big, or even child's play. It's a small thing that can play huge to a room.
Absolutely, yeah, because when you spread through that, if you're doing an invisible deck, what puts people off performing an invisible deck very often is that you've got to do albeit quite a simple sum in your head when you're performing it. Okay, so if you're a little bit nervous, or you're talking and you've got to try and do this sum on the fly and blah blah blah. But if you're doing this in stand up now, it makes it even easier, because all you do is you hold the cards towards your face, and you're just looking for the card that they've named. So all you've got to do is make sure you bring the pack out the right way around, and that's it. So as well as playing bigger, it now becomes that much easier to perform as well. But it's a great effect, for how much room it takes up in your jacket pocket or in your corner of your case. As you mentioned earlier, now if you're thinking about upselling your show, you learn 3 ropes and a baby, and you've put an invisible deck in your pocket. You've got, well, I ain't going to say 10 minutes, but you've got 5 or 6 minutes there easily.
Yeah, 100%. Very, very true. And that brings us on to number 7. What's in your 7th position?
It is Cloak. So Cloak is my own effect. And again, I'm not trying to plug my own stuff here, but I genuinely don't perform a lot of other people's stuff. Cloak is just one of those effects that always gets a laugh. People are interested, the props are visually interesting, and they just don't see the ending coming from a mile away, So it's it's just something that I've had a lot of fun performing. I got because I use the aged cards, right? Have you seen the aged cards? And I got a really old-fashioned £10 note made. I was selling them on my site for a little while, but I've sold out now. But you basically bring out like an old tenner that's like, it looks like it's about 150 years old, and I say I never lose. I'm not saying I've never lost at this game, but this £10 note's been in my family for a long time, And then I go into the whole presentation and the whole routine, and when those the Cluedo cards come at the end, they just don't see it coming, and it's just really funny, and especially when people are buying into the fact that they think they've beat you and the magician's in trouble and all that type of stuff. Did you know where the name Cloak came from, by the way? I'm not sure if I've ever put this out there before.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so Cluedo and poker gave me Cloaker.
Okay.
And then I thought, well, I can't call it Cloaker because that doesn't mean anything, so I shortened it to Cloak. So the name became Cloak, and then once I got the name Cloak, I thought, oh, that sounds like a bit of an Agatha Christie type novel. So the artwork on the packaging is actually a 1950s Agatha Christie novel, and we've just changed the name to Cloak.
Oh, wow.
So that's where it all came from.
Nice.
Yeah. So there you go. Bit of a scoop for you, Jamie. It was just a flash of inspiration one morning. I was sitting there and I was thinking about the poker deal, because the 10-card poker deal, I did publish a sort of variation of the 10-card poker deal some years ago. And the ending for that was you dealt yourself 5 aces. So that was a bit of a gag, and it was obvious that you'd been cheating, right? And then I was just sitting there and I thought, what would be funny? And it just popped into my head, Colonel Mustard in the library with the lead piping. And I thought, oh yeah, that would be funny. And I just sat there, and honestly, I'm not exaggerating now. I sat there laughing to myself, just out loud laughing. I was in my place on my own, laughing to myself because I thought it tickled me.
It gives us a good insight into what your life is like.
It's a bit sad, but I sat there. Honestly, I sat there laughing. And the hardest thing from that point then really was to think of what to do with the other 2 cards, because obviously I needed 5 cards. So the obvious one was we were playing Cluedo, so I got the Cluedo logo, and then it was the last card, and I was thinking for a good sort of 3, 4, 5 days, and I just couldn't it just wouldn't go, and I was ringing all my mates, telling them the first bit, and they were all laughing down the phone, and I was like, but I need a last card. And oh yeah, I'll get back to you. I'll see if I can come. Nobody could think of anything. And then the one day I thought to myself, do you know what? We'll go down the gambling route, and that's where the You Owe Me £10 came from. I put the blank card in, as you know, for people who can write in different currencies. And I've had a couple of people sort of get in touch saying that they've come up with alternative endings that they've wrote on there. One guy told me he'd come up with a great ending. I was like, oh, brilliant, what is it? I'd love to know. Never answered me, so I don't know what that is. Could be, I ain't got a clue.
Maybe that's what it is. He just kept it blank.
Yeah.
That was it.
And then another one, yeah, could have been, yeah. And then another guy, he didn't like the gambling thing because I think he was quite religious. And he was performing at church groups and things like that. And I think, gambling's sort of, not, well, I'm going to say a bit frowned upon, let's put it that way. His words, I think. He said something along those lines anyway. So he basically said that he'd changed it and said something along the lines of, I've always preferred chess. And I thought, yeah, okay. And he changed the game at the end. And then I said to him, well, instead of chess, why don't you just put Yahtzee? And then you've got that moment of like, oh, Yahtzee, and you inject a bit of life into the ending. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's great. So that's another ending. But for me, the You Owe Me £10 just works perfectly, really, because it's like you game playing poker. And, you've performed it yourself. When you say to them, you'd bet £10 on that. How often do they say to you, oh, I'll bet more than that, mate? They do, don't they?
Yeah, exactly that.
And that's the thing. And I think by doing that and then talking about money and stuff, it strengthens the surprise that's going to come in a second, because it just leads them down the garden path a little bit further. Do you know what I mean? So really, again, another self-working trick, easy to perform, but it's fun to perform as well. I think it gets a good reaction, good laugh. So yeah. Number 7 is Cloak.
So that brings us on to your last item, number 8.
This is probably the most boring answer that you're ever going to have, and I'm really sorry, but it's just a regular pack of cards. Because, as we all know, there's absolutely millions of things that you could do with a pack of cards. Let's be honest about it. You can do pick a card routines. You can use them as counting objects to do cards across. You can do cards to pocket. You can do prediction effects. You can do transpositions. You can do torn and restored card if you want. There's pretty much every genre of magic trick that you can name. Even things like, if you think about big stage illusions, sawing a lady in half, card warp, you can do it with a pack of cards. There's absolutely everything with a pack of cards.
So all the way through this podcast, we've had 2 things happen. Number 1 has been honourable mentions, which you've already done. So you've already put in the names of other tricks by accident, but I'll let you have them. It's all good. And then the other thing is that they've done something like this, and then I've been really mean, and I'm going to do it to you as well. So you said a pack
like
of
QI, this is, isn't it?
Yeah, it literally is. So you've said a pack of cards. However, because you're going to your island and I've restricted you to one thing, you're only allowed to do one routine with that deck of cards. What is the routine that you would pick?
Well, before I tell you that, I think you need to have like the buzzer like QI for future ones. And just when they do that, press the button so it goes off and you get minus 50 points. So one card trick. Oh, that's such a...
There's not many to choose from.
There's flipping millions to choose from. So, okay, so my go-to card trick... I do one card trick at a table. And and it's something that I've been working on it for sort of 20 years, and I'm not going to say it's an ambitious card routine, because that's doesn't even come close to sort of saying what it is. But basically, it's a signed card routine. It does jump to the top twice, but from then on, it's going into my pocket, it's going into my wallet, it's going into my other pocket, and it ends up folded up inside a cigarette lighter or inside a destination box or whatever. So I think I did publish what I was doing at the time. What did I call it now? I think I just called... Well, anyway, it's basically my ambitious / jazz card, signed card routine. Or, I'm going to give you two.
Honourable mention.
And I'm going to give you two. In my latest book, I've got a card in tin routine, and I've been having a hell of a lot of fun with that. I mean, just always on stalk moments. So, do you know what? I'm going to rewind and I'm going to go with my card in tin routine.
Oh, so your honourable mention then is your multiple ambitious card routine?
Yeah, that I've been doing for years for this new thing. But the reactions on it are fab. Yeah, it's great.
Okay, do you know the name of the routine?
It's called Card in Tin. Because I'm
original.
I'm rubbish at naming tricks.
That's good.
As the explanation for Cloak will tell you. Cloaker.
So that brings us to the two arguably hardest things for you to have chosen, because we've restricted you to 1, not 8 like in the other ones. Mm-hmm. So we're down to the one book that you would choose. I will say pretty much everyone's done an honourable mention for this one as well.
I'm not going to do an honourable mention. I don't think. Oh, maybe. So for me, it's Simon Says by Simon Lovell. It's an absolutely brilliant book, and I'll tell you why. It's not even the tricks. All the other tricks are good. The way the book's written and produced is fabulous. There's loads of pictures of Simon performing and throughout his life and stuff. I've only ever met Simon once, and it was like, late at night outside the Ruskin, so we were both probably not at our best, let's put it at that. But he was such a nice man. He was such a really nice guy. But his book is just fantastic. It's crammed full of material. There's drawings of all the routines and the moves and everything else, as well as photographs of him with loads of magicians that he's met in America and stuff like that. And he moved from the UK to live in New York for a while. I believe he's back over here now. But the other thing as well is, when I first read this book, I was just starting out performing. So again, it's about 20 years ago, maybe a bit longer. Can't remember when it was published now. But I was just starting out, and there's a whole chapter on performing, about how to approach groups of people, pocket management. I mean, he's a wacky guy, and it's his thoughts are a bit different, and the way he writes it is funny, and he's patter he would never use in a million years, because he's just like as mad as a box of frogs. However, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. His thoughts are absolutely brilliant. He's talking about pocket management. He's talking about how to approach a group, how to get their attention, how to leave the group. I'd never heard of it. I'd never even thought about this. How to leave a group. Well, why would you need to leave a group in a certain way? And it got me thinking about all these things. How to entertain a group of people, and I'm just like, it was fabulous. It was a real epiphany for me reading that. And for me, I don't do any of the material from the book now. I did at the time. Some of it was beyond my grasp at the time. It was too difficult. There was, some sleight of hand stuff in there, using second deals and things like that. And some of it was very sort of straightforward, just using a card control and a double lift. And I did perform some of it back then. I don't perform any of it now, but it's such a great book, and I would urge anybody to buy it. Even if you're a seasoned pro, buy it, read it. You'll get something from that book. It's fab. Yeah,
great choice. And just I'm going to
mention.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, have you got your honourable mention?
Yeah, Art of Astonishment by Paul Harris. Fabulous books, all three of them. Brilliant.
I think they've been named either once or a couple of times.
Oh, they're great. They're fabulous.
What I've said is, what I'm going to do is, when I edit all of the podcasts, I'm going to create a spreadsheet of all of the tricks, and hopefully we'll get a roundabout idea of the most popular or the most chosen trick?
I'm sure Paul's book will pop up a lot because for close-up performers, I mean, there's so much stuff in there. Again, if you think about things like solid deception, people still using it today. You know, bizarre twist, one of my favourite routines. Las Vegas sleeper. One of the things that I love, and I keep forgetting to do, and every now and again I'll remember it and I'll perform it, and I'll think, why did I ever stop doing it? Whack your pack. Do you know Whack Your Pack by Paul Harris?
Yep.
What a brilliant routine. His card control, flip, flop, pop, brilliant. You know, so his stuff, bear in mind it was published in the late 70s, some of it, like Super Magic was 1978, I think. So far ahead of his time, you know, unbelievable.
Again, another wacky person and performer.
I'd love to meet him, but he's just a bit out there, isn't he? You know, he's just like a bit of a hippie, just like so chilled out and laid back, and yeah, fair play to him. I just love his way of thinking. Brilliant.
Agreed. But that brings us on to the most interesting one.
Oh, I don't know what to say.
The non-magic item that you use for magic.
A non-magic item that I use for magic. I'm going to say my car, and then I can get off this treasure island and go home.
Smart. That's quite smart.
I don't know. What a non-magic item that you use for magic? I mean, a sat-nav, but you wouldn't need it on a desert island, would you? That's a non-magic item that you use for magic.
Well, it's still a tool that we use for magic, so as long as there's a good reason for it. I couldn't live without my sat-nav, if I'm entirely honest.
Well, I used to get around without a sat-nav, and it was just like mega impossible. You're doing a gig out in the middle of nowhere, like in a you know, when you get them in like homes and stuff like that, you know, where the catering companies come in, and you try doing that without a sat-nav now. Yeah, I used to have a box full of maps in the back of my car. You know, you'd have like you'd have like a map of the area, and then you'd have an A to Z, and you'd have to literally sit there and sort of puzzle it all out on a map. So I think the sat-nav's just been a great invention for performers in general, because, you know, you're doing these house parties, especially when I was a kids entertainer. You know, you're trying to find somebody's house in a town you've never been to before. It's, you know, without a sat-nav, it's nigh on impossible. No, mate, it was a really difficult question, that, to be honest, but something that I use for magic that it's not magic. I don't know.
I'll let you have sat-nav.
Okay,
I think that's good enough.
Yeah, thank
that's
you.
good enough. Amazing list. Really, really good. Some great choices there. We've had Steve Cook pop up a couple of times as well.
Steve's just one of my, like I said earlier, he's just one of my favourite people, never mind creators, but I just love the way he thinks, and he's very strips things back to and makes things very simple and easy to follow. And he's got some chops as well, you know. I mean, I've had a session with him a couple of times, and he can do some really great sleight of hand and stuff, but he's just the way he thinks and everything, you know, and he's just he's such a lovely man as well, you know. He's such a nice guy.
Mm-hmm. So if people want to find out more about you, where to find you and your products or any of that good stuff, then where would they go?
So I've got my own online store now, which is stellamagic.com. Now, because people know me, they think Stella is as in a pint of Stella, Stella. No, it's not that one. Stella as in, you know, really like Interstellar. And so basically, yeah, stellamagic.com. And yeah, so I'm sort of doing my own releases now, but although still working with guys like yourselves, and I've got a couple of releases still coming out with you guys quite soon, I think. So yeah, stellamagic.com will get you through to me, and yeah, just drop me a line, and if I can help you, I will.
And if you're an Alakazam Unlimited member, you can find Chris's button on there. So he's got a creator page and he's got a creator button. So you can go on there, find out more about him through there as well. We've also got his effects linked underneath so they can access products and stuff like that and find out more. So if you are an Unlimited member, make sure that you go and check out Chris on there and explore more, because he's got some wonderful books as well. So make sure you pick those up. You've just released your like collected works in one volume, which is an interesting approach as well.
Out. Gone.
Great.
All gone. Yeah, I might get it reprinted at some point. I had 100 done because I had a tour, as you probably know, in Australia and New Zealand, so I took some over there. And and yeah, they've all gone. So I've had people asking me about them, so I might get some more done. But I've got so much stuff that I'm working on, really, that I don't know, it's getting the time really to do it. So yeah, I may get it. I may have it reprinted, but for the moment they're out of print, I'm afraid.
Which is code for go on eBay, and one will be available for £3,000
from me.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Chris. It's been really interesting to find out what you would take to your desert island, and I hope that we hear from you again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, Peter Nardi here, and I really hope you enjoyed that podcast. I just wanted to let you know that Alakazam have their own app. You can download it from the App Store or the Google Play Store. By downloading the app, it will make your shopping experience even slicker at Alakazam. You'll also get exclusive in-app offers and in-app live streams. So go download it now, and we'll see you on the next podcast.